Friend Elaine Shircliff is in studio with us, and she's going to help us decide what the day is, because it's either National Lookalike Day, which is why you may have seen that Jeff and I were looking up things on the internet, or National Pineapple Upside Down Cake Day. Do we have a preference?
Well, I wish it was National Pineapple on Pizza Day because I'm all about that life. But I'm allergic to gluten, so we're going to have to go look alike.
I figured you might choose that. Well, but we only want to go pineapple on Pizza Day if Big G's in studio, because I don't know if you heard this episode, but he literally threw his headphones. Sorry if I got him in trouble with Scott there. The headphones were okay, I think, Scott. But he threw his headphones when I basically talked about pineapple on pizza, and then I got the guests going on it. He was very mad at me.
I think I was here.
Was that? Were you on that? Okay, that's what I thought.
Was.
Well, you were. I know you were here for the peanut butter on the burger one.
I've been here for some pretty wild
Yeah,
ones.
you were here for the peanut butter on the burger. That was the most mad he had gotten at me. there's a lot of entries on that particular scale, but so apparently we're going look-alike day, Jeff.
Okay.
And I looked. So I took one of Jeff's Facebook photos because I'm Facebook friends with him and actual friends with him, not just Facebook friends with him. And he got Tom Hardy, and what was the other one I told you? It was another good one.
Fozzie Bear?
Right, Fozzie Bear. No, that's the kind of one I want. I want to be Beaker. I'm not thin enough to be Beaker, but I like Beaker. Me. It was Tom Hardy and Ryan Gosling.
There's no way.
Those are good ones.
Yeah.
When
that was AI lying to you.
I hope a particular friend of mine is listening to hear this because he's going to laugh in a moment here, but I got Patton Oswalt when I put mine in.
You didn't get no other one. It was just one.
Patton Oswalt was the most likely, and I got the guy from The Office that Pam dumps, David Denman.
Okay. No.
Oh, I think no.
I got both of those. So Patton Oswalt though I put another photo in, and Patton Oswalt became the more likely one. I was trying to lean them away from Patton Oswalt, and I put in more photos, and they're like, "Yeah, we actually think you're Patton Oswalt. Log in as Patton Oswalt." So I don't know. Have you ever been told that you look like anybody, Elaine?
Have you a lot of things? Well, obviously, there's always Adele, and I think it's because I'm a big kid. And I mean,
Adele's a good one, though.
I was a singer for a while, so that probably checks for why people were like, "Oh." I actually look exactly like my cousin Jasmine. So whenever I go to her town that she grew up in Ohio, people are like, "Jasmine, wait. She lives in Florida. Hold on." Yeah, so but celebrity-wise, it's always something random.
Adele makes sense. I used to get Colin Farrell a lot when I was younger.
Okay, that's a good one.
I got that one, and then as I got older, if my beard is longer, I get a lot of Jason Kelsey.
Actually,
okay.
I got Harry Potter when I was younger.
Harry Potter.
When Harry Potter came out, so I had a bowl cut when we first moved to Ohio when I was like 11 because I was playing flag football and I thought that'd be cool. And then Harry Potter came out a few years later, and I had round glasses and everything, and so.
Oh, it's the glasses. We were talking about this.
Yeah, people would pull up the picture and be like, "You look like Harry Potter." And actually, my parents, when my dad bought me the first book, because he was like, "Oh, look, it's about you." So.
I've heard from my stylist friend as of last night that bowl cuts are back. So So next time you're in studio, I want a bowl cut.
No, thank you.
Okay,
no,
well, she passed. That's all right.
I thought it was so cool.
I had a bowl cut back in the day too.
I had a bowl cut. Literally, my mother put a bowl on my head and cut my bangs.
Mine was a bowl as well.
They're back.
No, thank you.
I'm just
leave that in the past.
And this is from a good source. But speaking of glasses, Jeff, you said you've gotten Seth Rogen because of the glasses. You wear kind of unique glasses sometimes.
I can see that.
Your glasses they're cool. They're like a statement. Yeah, they're
black glasses.
But they're like
I like to say the Buddy Holly glasses.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I would think. I wouldn't think of them as Seth Rogen glasses.
No.
I would think of them as Buddy Holly. But yeah. So let's see. I'm looking at our group here. This might not be a bad group. Harry would be able to roll with this, the look-alike, because he's a comedian and a writer. So he's going to be able to roll with this. So I think we're going to go with that one, since Elaine picked that one. She can't have pineapple upset. What can you? Well, you can have it if it's gluten-free, right?
Yeah.
You can make a gluten-free one.
That's more work.
Yeah, well, I know. I have a gluten-free person at work, and I'm always trying to find her
And it might
treats.
not always taste good.
That's probably true. But okay, we got our thing of the day decided. We have Elaine here because, we were actually talking about this, and I think both of them told me not to say anything, but I don't know, I'm talking. So, but the Red Wings didn't really have a bad season in my estimation. That's where I stand with the season. I know people are disappointed, and you could be disappointed. That's allowed, but they had a pretty decent season, but now it gives us an opportunity to cover the Griffins, which I'm excited about because we can have Elaine in. She's also a Bears fan, fair warning, because we're going to talk a little Bears probably too. But we want to focus on the Griffins because she's on the Griffins beat. And they're worth paying attention to because we started this a couple years ago with the Tigers minor league report before the Tigers got quote unquote good again. We were covering the minor leagues, basically saying like, hey, pay attention to this because these are the players you're going to see. And now we're seeing McGonigal and other folks that they had covered for years and know a lot about. It's kind of the same thing for the Griffins. Like now you can kind of scout some of these guys that are the future and that we have seen on the roster this year too, because it's a good roster now that has some good experience for the home stretch.
Yeah. No, I feel that way. I told people about 3.5 years ago that it's going to take 5 years because they had to figure out what was going on with the Griffins because nothing was working and they had the talent. And so once you figure that out with the prospects, and you're going to be able to do something up top because you have to be able to have them slot in, and they weren't executing the same systems correctly. In fact, I think the Griffins have been doing a better job of executing those systems than the Red Wings this season, which was not something I'm used to seeing.
I that's an interesting observation. I can see that though because there was clearly some disconnects at the NHL level to a degree. I do think they still played fairly well, but there were some things that didn't go great, especially down the stretch, obviously. But there are a lot of things to look forward to, I think, with the Griffins. The other thing too, I think this was you and I that were having this conversation, Jeff, that the team building aspect for the NHL is much more akin to Major League Baseball. I think people try to put it on the same timeline as like NFL and NBA, and that's a false equivalency that they're doing. I'm sure you probably hear that a lot, Elaine, that they just, they're trying to say, well, I saw a post the other day saying, well, 7 years, the only people that didn't make the playoffs in 7 years, and it was different GMs, and they were putting people from, it was like the only ones that compare is MLB, and I think they had Al Avila, who did acquire a decent amount of players that are on the team now, but it takes a while with the NHL, and I think we try to compare it to the NFL or the NBA, but it's really only like the MLB and may even in some ways be longer term.
I think it depends on the team, the organization. It depends on the position as well. And the only major difference I saw with how the Wings and the Griffins ran things during a game is Dan Watson is great at in-game changes on the fly. He's thrown guys from the third line up to the first line because he's like, oh, this guy's working. And he rolls the lines better. He understands how, you can't bring MBN up and put him on the fourth line. Michael Brandt said Nygaard up, put him on the fourth line, have him play like maybe 11 minutes, play 5 minutes sometimes. Like that's detrimental to them as a player. But why are you wasting that? Like your first line's not producing. Okay, well, this kid's good. Let him play a little bit longer. Like, there's no point. That was where I saw that difference.
That makes sense because that you do have to be strategic about that. It's like if you bring somebody up, you want to make sure they're getting the most of their experience. If they're not playing it, again, it's the same, not to keep comparing it to baseball, but it is the same thing with baseball. They did have some guys that were fringe cuts for the Tigers, and they said, hey, we're not going to put them at the back end of the roster here. We're going to put them firmly in the rotation or firmly in the lineup in the minor leagues so they can work some things out. That should be the same with the Griffins, where, yeah, have them ready to be called up, but only when they're actually going to factor in and their line is going to play a decent amount. Or if I've made this suggestion before, and I don't think I've found a single person that likes it, but I want everybody that goes by their initials and has a hyphen in their name to be on the same line, and then name that line like the hyphen line.
We thought that we had a defender who had another defender, Alex Kanek-Leipert. We thought that was a hyphen when beginning of the season. It's not. And we were so mad. We were like, man, we could have had like 3 hyphens on the ice at the same time. Like, come on.
I like that. The hyphen line.
You like that?
Yes.
I really like nicknames, and especially in hockey, and none of the hockey people want to talk about nicknames or these kinds, besides Keith Gave when he came on the show. Because he had in his grind line book, he had like all the lines named and all the famous lines. But other than that, I can't get anybody to bite on this particular idea, mainly because when I was watching the draft, and we did a draft episode that you were on, and you guys know way more about who's in the draft. I'm not up on the hockey prospects. So basically, I was just, whenever there was somebody on the big board that was coming and the Red Wings pick was coming, I was like, there's a hyphen like 5 picks from now. That's all I was watching.
There's a hyphen. There's a goalie.
Yeah, it didn't matter. Just like take the hyphen, or take the goalie to do my 5 goalie lineup that I've proposed to other people. That's why I say, if we're going to stockpile them, have Goldberg with his knuckle puck, whoever that is. I don't know which one that is. That's Postava, maybe. Maybe Postava's got a knuckle puck.
I actually think it might be Kosa.
You think it? Well, I know. I wanted to put Postava is better as kind of like the odd character.
Yes,
that's why I put him
slept
in.
on right now.
But tell me about that goalie situation, because it has been, I've been intrigued about it from the major, kind of what we're talking about, from the NHL level down. You had Gibson, who by all accounts played well this year, but he clearly I think he got worn down the stretch. He was being overplayed
because of the defense.
Yeah.
Actually, and because of the offense, because the offense wasn't stepping up. So the defense had to take a more two-way role. And so then you don't have as much in front of you. So the goaltender kind of has to like stand on his head. The same things, I'm seeing similar things happen here that happened in Columbus.
Okay.
So it's an interesting correlation to me.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think of it like that, but I can see that, because it's like, I think he was healthier than anybody could have kind of asked for. I think he was healthier than if you had to take an average of how many games is he going to play this season. This was way above, but I almost think that his health kind of undid him at times, because then it's like they forced him out there and they never got a good rotation going. They didn't use Talbot hardly at all, which, I kind of understand that. But if you're not going to do that, then you've got 2 guys down here in Grand Rapids that are eventually going to need some experience, especially Kosa. You got to think you're going to pull him up. So maybe we'll come back after the break and talk about the goalie situation, because I think it's interesting, and I want to find out more about Elaine's comparison here with Columbus. But stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. I feel like I lose them because I've got to gain some credibility in the conversation and then propose my all goalie lineup. I do it too early. You already know me, so I don't have to worry about losing you. But I do that too early. But no, I mean, there has been, obviously the Red Wings as a whole have needed to improve the goalie situation. And then the Gibson move initially seemed to kind of right size that rotation in theory. As far as you've got Gibson, you've got Talbot, that's probably got one more year, being this past year, and then he's going to be on his way out as an older goalie. Then you've got Koso, who should presumably be ready. Postava was kind of a wild card that was thrown in there, and then you've got Augustine that should be part of the succession plan as well. But you've seen now 3 of these guys, because Augustine is part of the roster. And I'm curious kind of how you've seen the experience here and why you think Kosa is our knuckle puck guy for the Goldberg all goalie lineup.
Well, because Kosa, he wants to score and he would love to fight someone. So when you put those qualities into one, you're like, that's a knuckle puck kind of guy.
Well, he needs to be, who was it? I'm having to go back into the Wayback Machine. I think Fulton Reed. I think he was the fighter.
The Bash Brothers.
Yeah, he needs to be one of the Bash Brothers. Yeah.
That would...
Sorry, this is how I derail all the
No, that's actually perfect. That's way better. Then probably Carter Geitlander would be.
Oh, well, see,
Yeah.
that's another one. I mean, they do have a lot of goalies that are playing well at the various levels that they're at, because these are names that we've heard a lot on the show so far.
And Carter Geitlander actually played, in my opinion, I think he played better at the AHL level. I think he plays better at a faster level. With more skilled players, more people rushing at him, but not in like a ECL. The ECHL is a little bit different than the AHL with speed. And he's right now playing with the Toledo Walleye, who are also in the playoffs as well. So bummer that Detroit couldn't get in and have the trifecta top to bottom, but that'll happen eventually. But I think that Carter Geitlander is great for the AHL. There's just no room for him, and it's really sad because he's so good. So I hope he finds a place that somebody wants him. I was excited when John Gibson came. I just didn't think they were going to use him as much as they did, and I was confused by Cam Talbot. And because Kosa going up and backing up for a little bit and then doing a rotating would have been really good, but now it's almost like Kosa's not. He's struggling now since they sent him back down from Detroit. He just hasn't been that good. Still better than most of the league, but just not what the Wings are going to need. Where Michael Postava has come in and been like, pew, pew, pew. Like, he's...
What was that again?
Yeah. We didn't get that. I think Jeff accidentally dumped that. Can you repeat it for us?
He's been guns blazing.
He's Yosemite
Guns
Sam.
a-blazing. Pew,
He's
pew.
Yosemite Sam, I think.
He's just been phenomenal, and he played in 25 games and 25 games, 17-6-0, and he never allowed more than 3 goals in a game. He has 4 shutouts. 3 of them were against the same team. Like, he's just been incredible.
Well, there's a few things at play here, I think. I don't think anybody, even in the Red Wings organization, would have bet on the health holding out between Gibson and Talbot the way that it did. Like, I just think you would have had to assume that there was going to be a stint there where Kosa could have been called up and actually gotten some good minutes because Gibson's out for 10 games, and that never really happened.
But you would hope that a GM wouldn't think that way.
Yeah.
You would hope that's not what Steve was thinking, because you can't, I mean, I guess you could bet on it like that knowing what you have, because even Rudy, I can never say his name, Guimond, Guimond, it's French, so if anyone
No, we're out. Jeff, you got anything on it?
Guimond.
No, there we go. That sounded good. I like how he said it. You need a hand motion with it, I think.
He's also good. I don't think he can come up until the year after, maybe something with the I think it's with the CHL agreement. Don't quote me on that. This is live.
I mean, you're on the radio, so redacted. Don't listen.
But he's not here yet. But that's another one that's in the mix, and whoever their goalie scout is, like, deserves a raise, because maybe they should scout for the whole league. I don't know. They just find them.
Well, and to go back to the situation from last year, because I get what you're saying in that you don't want to plan for, okay, well, this guy's going to be hurt for 10 games. But I do think that they kind of plan for the worst case scenario some of the time. And I could see them going, well, hey, we've got everybody lined up. We're ready to go for whatever happens. But then the succession plan wasn't forced. So clearly they didn't kind of initiate the succession plan themselves, which I was a little surprised by, because now you weirdly are in the reverse scenario. You kind of had the situation that I'm familiar with. Well, we were talking about the Cleveland Browns. They're good at this, where if you have 2 or 3 quarterbacks, you kind of have none, because you don't really have like a clear starter. And that seems to be maybe what they're headed for in the season here. But it was kind of that way with the Red Wings. Last year, they had they kind of had three goalies that were all in the mix at different times, and they didn't really have a clear starter. Now they had a clear starter, a veteran backup, and then all these guys. And now it's like, well, now how do we fit these guys in? That's kind of why my mind does go to the joke of the five goalies, because I do think these guys are playing, and maybe it's Kosa, kind of the weight of his expectations versus Postava's playing a little bit more lean as far as he doesn't really have as much to lose. I know they're kind of playing the same position, but they got to that position in a different way. Kosa's kind of going up and coming back down. Postava's like, hey, what do I care? I'm just going for it.
I think what helps Postava, though, is he's good at coming in off the bench. Kosa has struggled with that a little bit. And I say struggle, keeping in mind that he is still better at doing it than most of the league. It's just comparing the two to each other. I would say if you want a dependable backup, which is what they wanted up there, you got to put Postava up there. If you want a starter, you should have put Kosa up there to begin with. He's just not built like a backup. And then when he does come in and he gets hot and he stays hot and he stays hot, and that's how he plays. That's who he is. That's the makeup of his goaltending style. But like Michael Postava is a perfect backup, although now I think of him as like the Jet Greaves. Jet Greaves plays for the Columbus Blue Jackets. He was very slept on in the Cleveland Monsters organization, and then they signed him to a contract. Now he's probably going to be the starter over Ellis Merzlikins, and that's what I'm seeing from Michael Postava.
Interesting. So what would be the ideal solution, I guess, now that you've got Talbot likely on his way out, you got Gibson with one more year, I think, and then you've got all these young guys. Like you said, there's not really enough space for all of them. You got to assume Augustine's moving over at some point. Like how do we allocate all these goalies unless I can sell anybody on my 5 goalie lineup?
I mean, I'm all for it, but I can't remember if they're still allowed to hold 3 goalies up in the NHL. I don't think they are anymore.
Well, I think they're changing that rule for next year. I remember them talking about this a little bit on the broadcast, where they were saying that the emergency goalie will be able to be kind of a fixture and travel with the team. Okay. So I think they will officially have 3 spots. I don't know how that works with the roster. This is a newer concept, so I haven't actually seen how the rule works, but that's what they've been saying.
So ideally, it would be cool if you could have 3 goaltenders and you elevate both Postava and Kosa, and just have Gibson kind of in the background to step in, because he's also really good at stepping in off the bench. But I say get crazy with it. Like, John was great. He's a good guy. Maybe get rid of him and bring those 2 guys up. And then you have Trey Augustine, you have Carter Gylander, you have Rudy, you have guys that can be there, and then hope for the best. That's a really bad thing, but I just feel like they should have had Kosa up there to begin with. But now Michael Postava has proven that he's good, so why not just take him out the oven? You're going to burn them.
I remember having this conversation at the end of last year with some of the analysts, like, hey, how much seasoning do we need here? I knew John was gone when she said, John's a good guy. You know that precedes the breakup. It's breakup time.
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy. It's not you, it's me.
Right.
That's a Seinfeld thing. We both like Seinfeld. But no, I was intrigued. I got to go back to one of the things that you said about I think it was Gylander, when you were talking about the speed and the increase in speed once he got to the AHL. I feel like that if you're seeing an improvement, does that increase your the amount that you're upbeat about him being promoted and how he would do in the NHL? Because obviously you're going to have an increase in speed if you go from AHL to NHL.
Right.
That's another big jump, but it's if he's responding well, there is one more jump that he could do where the speed would be increased in front of him.
Unfortunately, it's not going to happen in this organization.
No, I know you were saying he's got to be traded.
He would actually be a perfect fit, and I hate saying this because I don't like their AHL team, because they always win everything. He would be a perfect fit in the Caps organization. The Hershey Bears need a goalie. They need a goalie like him, and he would be really good, and they could mold him to move up. And I think he would be a terror to the rest of the league. They wouldn't see what's coming. I wish it was here though, because he plays. He's a good goalie. I don't know, like I enjoy watching him play. I thought he was going to give even Kosa a run for his money when Kosa was injured for a little bit. I was like, oh man, Gylander and Posthoff are like, this is a real deal, and they're in a very precarious situation in the Detroit organization with these goalies.
It's a good situation to be in, but it is funny that they all of a sudden flipped from like we don't have enough goalies at the right level to now we've got too many goalies, but they're not really in the right places. It seems to be analogous to how things are in the Red Wings organization as a whole. Like they have a good amount of talent if you could displace it evenly. Mm-hmm. It just isn't displaced evenly, like even at the pro level and on all the lines. They need more of this and a little, and they have too much of this, and that's why it's got to be in the AHL. And it seems like they hopefully can right size that. Obviously, you make some moves in the offseason, you trade or whatever. But who else should we keep an eye on here now that the Griffins kind of have their complete? Now that they have their roster back, and now that we're watching, who are some of the guys that you're going to have your eye on here?
Well, actually, it's some of the young guys. Well, first, there's a new guy, Wojciech Stachowiak.
How would you say that, Jeff?
7 out of 10.
Okay. Oh, you rated it.
He came from the Tampa Bay organization. He was traded here at trade deadline for Ian Mitchell. And he came with Michael Milne, who's now playing in Toledo. He has like 11 points in 9 games, or he might have more than that. I don't have it off the top of my head, but he has elevated players to the next level. He is really great at zone entries. He is phenomenal on the faceoff. He knows how to move a play. He can score. He can set guys up. I don't know why it didn't work where he was before with Syracuse, but it's working here, and it's elevating guys like Jakub Rakalski and Edward Strelmax, and those are guys that needed to be activated after the All-Star break, so that worked out well. He's phenomenal. But some of the new kids, like Dylan James, comes in, scores 2 goals in 1 game, and he did it well. You can tell he understands the game. And then there's Jesse Kiskanen, who came in like 5 games ago. It might be 8 now. Sorry, it's been a whirlwind at the end of the season. But he's scored a goal. He's had assists. But the best part about him is how he plays like on the faceoff. He's not the taker. He's on the wings, and he will like push a guy off the puck. He'll dig the puck off the boards. He does all of those things, and he does them so well. And they're little things that you don't notice right away, but when you add them all together, it creates a very well-rounded game, and I am very excited.
Well, that's the type of game that they need.
Yeah, that's what they're really hurting.
Yeah, I know that's not necessarily like the grabbiest as far as like, you're not going to see the electric goal scoring or whatever, but that's what they need more of at both levels, I suppose. I can't wait. I know you didn't even really highlight them, but you mentioned them. I can't wait for Trailmax to get to the NHL level, because I want Ken to say Trailmax. That's all I want. I know he's probably not even going to make it, but we need a new Oli Mata. He said Oli Mata with such a flair, and he doesn't say any of the names with the same flair. So I'm getting on the name talk again. This is where I get lost with.
I am sad because I don't know. I'm pretty sure I'm not a rumors girl, right? I'm not a big fan of the rumors, but there seems to be a little bit of legs with this that he might be playing over in Europe next season, a bigger contract, which makes me sad because, yes, he needed to work on his defensive side of the game, but since Stachowiak got here, he has. Like, it is great how his defensive game has, like, excelled. And I think that there is a place for him in the NHL. I hope that the rumor is not true. And I hope that he's going to give it one more year, because I know that there are teams across the league in the NHL who are looking at him because of how he played in the Olympics.
Interesting. Well, yeah, you never know what's going to happen. But Jeff, Elaine Shircliff, not a Fleetwood Mac fan. She doesn't like rumors.
Whoa.
So not a Fleetwood Mac
on.
fan.
That is slander. My family will be calling me up.
And I was just going to go to break too, and just not let Elaine talk after that. But she got it. No, of course we're kidding. But we are going to have one more segment with Elaine, and I think we're going to do some Bears talk here, because we're also going to have Elaine on next week, as long as she puts up with us more. I don't know if Jeff is on the board. I don't think he's on the board next week.
No, I'm not here next week. No.
I can't remember who's on next week. But
Big G?
Big G is taking the month off. I think it might be Aaron, actually. I think it might be Aaron next week. But whoever it is, she's going to have to put up with me again. And but we're going to do some Bears talk, because we wanted to kind of preview the draft and review the offseason from the Bears side, since she's a Bears fan, and then review on the back side here next week. So stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Trading some football talk onto this show and the next one here. But I am curious, we're going to have Rob Huff, our analyst for the Bears, on at some point. But they have an interesting offseason here in general, because obviously they're now, I mean, they're the Lions' rival now. They took their coach, but now the situation, Jeff and I have talked about this a decent amount on the show, the situation's now flipped. The Bears had the easiest schedule last year in the division. Now the Lions have the easier schedule. We'll see how that ends up, because it's the easier schedule in quotes right now, because a lot of these teams changed in the offseason. But I'm curious how you feel about your Bears after a very successful first season under Ben Johnson.
I don't know. I'm a little worried. There were changes that need to be made, but then when you think about how 40% of the O-line is like gone, it was a good O-line. And that scares me, because then you realize you have to now find the money to fix things there, but they really needed it in places like the defense and a few other places, and I don't know if they're going to be able to put the money into that. So I'm a little worried, but I mean, that's free agency for you, I guess.
And they do have an interesting, the draft will be interesting for them this year, I think, because I've been doing a 7-round mock draft with a couple guys that come on the show from Michigan Football Network. Don't ask me why I'm doing this. It's fun, but one of them has Chicago as the GM for Chicago, and we're in the middle of the draft, but he's having a very good draft with them. But what stuck out to me is that I think part of the problem for the Lions is the Bears are going to be looking for a lot of the same players, because they have Ben Johnson. They have a good amount of the coaching staff that he took over from the Lions. And that's going to be interesting to see how that interplay is, because I've seen even mock trades with the Lions trading back for the Bears pick to get like a Blake Miller or somebody that they're targeting. Obviously the Bears probably aren't going to be very likely to trade with the Lions unless they really think they're getting a good deal. But they are going to be looking for the same players. So I have a feeling when those picks are close to each other, they're going to be eyeing the similar players on their board.
I mean, anything could happen. I mean, who would have thought that one day the Bears might be placed in Indiana? Not me.
You're very excited about that.
I got lots of thoughts.
I kind of like that they'll be closer to here, Jeff. I know Elaine's not a fan of this. But
I think it's hilarious.
I spent my whole life
personally
being mean about like the football teams for New York being in Jersey and sharing a stadium. Well,
they won't have to share a stadium if they're in Gary.
Well,
they'll have one to themselves.
Well, the Bears, but like sharing a stadium, I don't. Yeah, that'll be the fine thing. But having to cross state borders, I've spent too much of my time being mean about the state of Indiana. Too much of my time.
Which I take offense to, Jeff, since I went to Indiana University.
Making fun of teams who were called one state and they were in another. I can't do it. But I also don't want it in Arlington Heights, so I'm part of the problem here.
It is always an interesting scenario how they do this nowadays, just like with the stadiums and with how they pay for the stadiums and using public money. And I want to eventually have more discussions about that on the show, because I don't think it's something that's talked about enough, like how these things actually happen.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, hey, we got this new stadium. Well, how's it? Is it multi-use? Is it who owns it? Are there public funds into it? I think that's all interesting things for people to know, and that all
That's a
factors
whole
into
show.
these. Oh yeah,
That's a whole show.
yeah,
We
yeah.
won't dive into that now.
No,
So
it's
back
not
to
this
your
show.
original
Yes,
thing. They might work with the Lions on that, but I can't see. I feel like the divisional rivalry right now between all of the teams is very, very not aggressive, but like there's definitely lines now. Before, maybe a few years ago, I could have seen people being like, "Oh yeah, let me throw you a bone," and now I think this division is like, "Oh, rivalries are back on."
well, especially because I think this is the makings of a very good rivalry between the Lions and the Bears, the type that I like. With the former coach goes over there, but they still respect each other, but they're playing each other tough. The Bears Packers thing is a whole different thing that's going on. That's becoming a different type of rivalry.
Yeah, it's always been that way for me.
I mean, it is a historic rivalry, but with the two current coaches, they're kind of elevating it. They're getting into like wrestling character mode.
No,
here.
I love it. It's great. I love a good rivalry. I mean, like me versus the Yankees is my favorite one. Like
That's right. What have they done to you?
It's generational.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's generational.
Okay.
It all stemmed from when the former manager of the then Cleveland Indians before I was born did something and brought a bunch of players over to the Yankees, and that was before I was born. And it's deep seated. I can't get rid of it.
And you don't need a reason to hate
Well,
the Yankees.
no, it's true. It's just it struck me as funny that her favorite rivalry was her with a baseball team. It just was a funny statement to me.
I have gone to games specifically just to cheer against them when I was out of town. Yeah.
Do you boo? Do you yell particular things?
I'm not always pleasant.
Yeah, don't repeat them. But because we're not, we're not sure the dumb button works. So we're trying to work that
Let's
out.
not play with the dumb button.
Yeah,
tonight.
And I know so much about the Yankees because I think the best kind of way to be a good rival is to know enough about them to really hit them where it hurts. Like if you know they embrace that thing, then don't make fun of them for it because they'll be like, yeah, we know. Yeah.
Oh, so you're like researching these players
Same thing
and
with
like
the Packers,
and like looking up foods that they don't like and then throwing the foods at them.
I used to be like that with the University of Michigan, but Ohio State then had their own stuff, so I was like, all right.
Yeah, that's kind of I've told some of my friends that are Michigan fans, it's like, okay, Ohio State might be. We went to the Big Ten tournament this year, and you kind of see who kind of bands together and who roots against whom, and Ohio State's probably number one as far as who people root against across the conference. But what Michigan fans don't understand is Michigan's probably two. Like, I don't think they understand that it's like they're right after Ohio State.
I think they do. They just don't want to say it.
Yeah, they don't want to admit it. I mean, Indiana's not low on that list, by the way. That's my alma mater. I'm not taking shots at anybody. But no, we appreciate you joining the show. Like I said, this is going to be kind of a before and after here. Since we've got a lot of Griffins to cover, we wanted to make sure to have Elaine on for two shows because we love having her on the show, and we'll review the Bears picks on the next episode as well. But be sure to tell people where they can follow your coverage in the meantime here.
You can follow me. The best place, honestly, is like Twitter. At I'm a Rain Dancer, and on Instagram at Grace by Rain. I also have my podcast, Grace by Rain Podcast, and there'll be some articles going up on gracedbyrain.com here in the next few days.
It's great stuff. Keep an eye out for that. Rather than, this is the advice I've been giving people with the whole Red Wings thing, rather than wallow about the Red Wings, pay attention to the Griffins. Pay attention to the hockey team in the market that's still going here and has some former Red Wings on it, future Red Wings, all of that stuff. So it should be a fun run here, and we'll cover the Griffins here for another week, and the Bears for anybody that's looking for Indiana Bears coverage. But no, she just pouted at that. I think it sounds snappy. I kind of like the sound of the Indiana Bears. I don't know why, but I just kind of like it.
I'm gonna cry.
Well, okay, yeah, they might have to rebrand a little bit too. I don't know how many Bears are running around Indiana, but
Dahlman retired.
It might be. Well, I think it's
dismantled the entire O line because of it.
I think it's Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson clearly doesn't do well with his. I mean,
not,
he ran
center
Ragnow out of
affects
town.
The entire O line, it trickles down, and he was really smart, and that's probably the biggest blow.
As the Lions learned last year,
we learned it last year.
Yeah, and that was Ben Johnson's last center before Dahlman. So I'm telling you, let's see how this goes with the next one.
Does he want to be center?
He might. Maybe he wants. Yeah, he wants to be the center of attention.
Let's do
and
it.
go right. Okay, we'll give him a try. Player coach. He's young enough. But no, we're happy we could have you on the show, Elaine, and joke around and talk some puck, talk some Bears, and we'll look forward to talking with you next week here. So yeah, we'll see Elaine next week, and then we'll turn our attention to basketball, another subject that's upsetting to people, I suppose. After the first game, everybody's ready to tear it all down, but we'll talk to Harry Moroz of the Order of the Blazing Horse podcast, my favorite Pistons podcast name. It's a great name, but we'll talk to him after the break. Stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Was just promoting this before the break, Harry, and our previous guest who was covering hockey was saying, I didn't even know what sport that was. Now I want to listen to the podcast because of the name. I said, yeah, it's my favorite name. No offense to my buddies that have other podcasts in the Pistons markets, because I talk to a lot of them, but it's my favorite name of any podcast in the Pistons market.
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate that too. Mickey and I spent a lot of time trying to come up with a name and a theme, and then Hooper just happened to visit us and tell us what was up. So, it's the year of the Blazing Horse, if you follow the Chinese new calendar, and it's the Order of the Blazing Horse. And you got to tell your hockey friends to get hip with the Hooper lore, dude.
I'm trying because I'm sure you've seen it too, but the Red Wings fans are kind of mopey right now, and so
why?
Why? Yeah, I know it's news to you, I'm sure, but I've been telling them, hey. I've been telling people all year, because people do this as sports fans, and we do have a tendency to point it out on the show, where you gravitate to whatever the worst one is of the fan base. If you're a fan of all four of the primary sports, then you go, well, wait a minute, this one's the worst. It's like, well, if the Red Wings are the worst team in this market, we're doing pretty good here.
Yeah, I'd say so. We have a big history, and the Red Wings, they had a great start to the year, a pretty epic collapse, but no shade to the current organization. That's kind of par for the course, I'd say, at this point. And the Red Wings are in a tough situation as far as being able to build that team up. It seems like you really need to strike pretty hot with the draft, and it hasn't been in their history. Unfortunately for them, but fortunately for the Pistons, pretty hot for our history.
Well, that's exactly where I was going with that, because people don't understand the fact that hockey is more akin to baseball in that long-term build. But then in basketball, you can have I'm not usually as quick of a turnaround as the Pistons had, but a quicker turnaround, because you're only starting 5 guys. You've got a smaller rotation of players, unless you're the Pistons, and then you have a very wide rotation of players.
Yeah.
but I've been telling anybody that's upset about any of the other teams and they're not a basketball fan, I said, you got to pay attention to basketball. This is the most fun team in the market right now. And yes, basketball is arguably my favorite sport, but it still is a fun team to watch. But I'm wondering if anybody's getting mopey after that first game, because I feel like I'm seeing some over. This is Overreaction Monday. Usually we have it after the football season, but now we're having it for basketball season.
Right. I got to tell you, maybe the thing I saw or I was least expecting about broadcasting sports, specifically the Pistons, I did not expect to be the guy that everybody on the planet that I knew who cares about the Pistons would call immediately after one friggin' game for me to talk them off the Ambassador Bridge. Everyone's freaking out about it. What went wrong? And I'm like, listen, I've got you on hold. I've got 4 other friends and family members, and I talked about this whole thing. Sports fans are hysterical, man. I don't think you should be allowed to be president if you're a sports fan. You're too hysterical.
I know we do talk about it a decent amount. I'm sure I'm I'm sure I'm very popular with our fans because I always go after fans on the show, which is a real good strategic choice.
I mean, like we're all people, and like we're watching the game. You know, it matters and stuff, but like all these players are pros. They're all very good at their job. Anything can happen on any given day, and especially like in this series. I mean, Orlando had title contention hopes at the beginning of the season. People forget that they were like nationally ranked significantly higher than the Pistons were to start this year off. And they just happened to be the 8th seed because of injuries, and they underperformed. And you're coming off the best game of your season, arguably, in that play-in game. And they played similar ball to the Pistons, and they came out hot. So, you know, good for them.
Exactly. I didn't know why, because we have a tendency to have a very short-term memory with things like this. I think you laid out the perfect point, which is this was one of the teams that was mentioned at the beginning of the season with the Knicks. There was a couple other ones in the mix, probably the Cavs,
the Hawks as well.
The Hawks,
Cavs,
they were a popular
Boston.
one, and now the Hawks have a totally different roster basically from there, but they're still kind of in the mix. But the Magic, there's a reason that they were included in that conversation. And you look at this five that they're starting for the playoffs, and there can be an argument that can be made where that five, I'm not going to be popular for this either, but that five could be better than the Pistons five. It's the depth that where the Pistons have the advantage, and that five on that individual day was better than the Pistons five, especially because you do have Banchero, who's been kind of slow at times but seems to be hitting his groove. You mentioned you mentioned Wagner being hurt. Then Wendell Carter has always been kind of underrated in my opinion, and obviously he had the big acquisition in Bane. But Jalen Suggs is a gamer. I know his numbers are not necessarily the best across kind of the season as far as averages go, but I worry about him in a playoff run because I feel like he's going to play his best basketball.
He's got that attitude and the defensive motor go. And I mean, like, it couldn't have been a hotter start for him with 2 threes. I know he didn't shoot like great overall, but he did hit clutch threes at clutch moments. And I do want to touch on the point about them having arguably a better starting five. I think arguably is a good word to use there. I don't necessarily agree, but you know, I'm Homer Simpson out here. I think Cade's the best player on both those teams, just like straight up. And then Jalen Duren's supposed to be like one of the best bigs in the league, maybe the best big in the East, and he got super shut down. And then like Duncan Robinson had a really good year. Asar's DPOY finalist. I know he didn't get it, but to be a finalist is saying something. And Tobias Harris has been really good for us down the stretch. So like, I think it's comparable at the very least. And you could argue that the Pistons have maybe higher upside if you want to go about like Suggs versus Asar. Asar's the better defender. If you want to talk about big men, I'm sure you'd rather have Jalen Duren over Wendell Carter Jr. And then first overall picks with Paolo or Cade, you're taking Cade 10 times out of 10 at this point. So on paper, who knows? Arguably, these two teams are close, and they're both going at it, and they're doing their thing. I really just think Orlando came out steamy, like really, really pushing it, really putting the pedal to the metal, and made Detroit feel it. And Detroit wasn't hitting shots. It looked like Cade, when he was starting, was still like getting his wind back a little bit. They couldn't get Duren involved, and part of this is like Duren not being aggressive enough. The other part of it is some of those passes going into Duren early were not good. Like, they resulted in turnovers pretty quick, so he didn't give his hands on the ball. And the big thing in this game to me, we can talk about, I think Jalen Duren is like the key factor here. The dude only got 4 field goal attempts. That's insane.
I agree.
And not only did he only get 4 field goal attempts, you got to remember that Jalen Duren is a huge part of the offense outside of that. Because when he's getting the ball at the top of the key, that allows the short roll to happen. That allows Asar Thompson to baseline cut. He wasn't getting those opportunities. So not only is Jalen Duren's scoring offense gone, his playmaking offense is gone. And that's like half of the Pistons offense that's not Cade Cunningham. So for the starting lineup at least, they really mitigated any non-Cade damage, Cade scoring damage, I should say, by bodying up Duren and taking him off the boards. Duren had the same amount of rebounds as Asar Thompson, and only 2 more rebounds than Cade Cunningham. He didn't even have 8 rebounds that game. So for him, it's iffy. Sorry to steamroll you there.
No, you're good. No, that was all great stuff. And I want to hit on a couple of the things. The initial part, when I was talking about their starting lineup, I completely agree with you for the record. I'd much rather have the Pistons lineup, but I feel like I have to kind of counterbalance some of the people's opinion on this. Now we're going way the other way because the Pistons lost a game, so now everybody's now out on them. But before this series, actually the person that came on the show from the Pistons beat to preview the series, they were basically saying, hey, when I said, who do you think are the threats to them? They basically said anybody but Orlando. And I didn't really love that concept because that was giving me Washington Commanders vibes when they played the Lions a couple years ago here. But it's the idea that this is a formidable team. I'm not saying let's all blow everything up after one game. It's not. I would have said this before the game. They're playing decent at maybe the right time here, but I still think the Pistons have the upper hand. Like you said, they both had kind of the opposite game. The Orlando, I think I saw the statistic. They're like kind of in the bottom half to bottom third of 2-point field goal percentage, but they blew that out of the water in this game. Obviously, they hit those clutch threes. Everybody was hitting, and the Pistons didn't play their best game. And part of it, I think you hit on something interesting, which is I know Cade had a good individual game. I also think he's going to play this next game differently because I know he felt like he had to take over, and sometimes there's times where you go, man, Cade's got to take this game over a little bit more. It was almost the opposite in this game where it was like, man, I get what he's trying to do here, but it just everybody else felt disconnected, and that offense usually feels very connected to me.
I couldn't agree more. Essentially, what the Pistons ended up doing on offense is what the game plan was for them to do Orlando on defense, right? That's why Tobias Harris is guarding Paolo Banchero and Ausar's guarding Des Bane, right? It's not because Paolo's not the best player on their team. It's because when they play Boston, they put Ausar on Peyton Pritchard or Derek White or something and let Tobias body up Jaylen Brown. They try to force you to play one-man basketball. And Paolo's not the best playmaker. So they just want Paolo to force Paolo to make tough shots, getting the body on him. And he just happened to. You have to give it up to Orlando. They hit tough shots. They hit really good, really contested shots. They were going hard after the rebounds. They're hustling. They're diving on the floor. And like you said, hitting those clutch threes, it seemed like every time the Pistons made any sort of run to tie it up to get there, there'd be a stopper. There'd be a stopper basket. There'd be a three-point turnaround. There'd be a stop defensively that would end up in a bucket for Orlando, end that run. And basketball just straight up is a game of runs. And Orlando got the first one, kept getting the stoppers. They were scoring the way they wanted to be scoring, or at least the way they needed to be scoring to win the game. And you said it. The Pistons were forced to play offense the way they were trying to get Orlando to play offense.
Exactly. So it's funny here, Jeff. You were nodding your head through that that take from Harry. You have something to add?
Yeah, he hit it on the head. They answered every time the Pistons made a run. In my opinion, as I was watching that game, the Pistons look like a team that hadn't played in a week, and Orlando has no fear, and they're playing with nothing to lose. But when I got done watching that game, I looked at my son, my 20-year-old son, and I said, that is the best game Orlando's going to play. I don't think Detroit is going to allow that. I think Orlando's played their best game, and I still think the Pistons in 6 easily, but I think Orlando played their best game. I don't think they can answer. Yeah, they can't answer like that. I think it's fair to say that they played their best game. I mean, you look, every one of their starters had double digits as far as scoring goes. They shot essentially 50% from the floor. They shot around 33% from three, which for them is, I think, kind of fine. And they just kind of had their way with Detroit. That's, again, I don't want to take anything away from Orlando. They're a good team with really talented players with really big bodies on top of it. But they had a night, and the stars. The stars on their jerseys in the A aligned for them that evening.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree with you guys completely. But we're going to take a quick break and come back and kind of continue to diagnose and then give some predictions on what they do moving forward here. But I'm with you guys so far for sure. Stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM.
From the GarbarinoRoofs.com studios.
Country with a twist. Jethro FM. 1530 AM. WYGR Wyoming Grand Rapids. 94.9 FM Grand Rapids. 99.5 FM Lowell. And Jethro South. 980 AM WAKV Otsego Plainwell. 98.9 FM Otsego. And 105.1 FM Kalamazoo. Available worldwide at jethro.fm.
I wanted to give a plug to the podcast. You know from your last appearance that we celebrate the thing of the day here. And I know we haven't seen each other in person, but it is National Lookalike Day. So I'm curious if you have a lookalike that you get often.
Do they have to be a celebrity?
Well, I mean, I'm all good for you being. Our first guest said, "Well, I look a lot like my cousin," and I'm like, "Okay, sounds good."
Okay, all in the family. I don't look as much like my little brother anymore as I used to, but we did play twins in a commercial for Detroit Edison at one point. But the guy that people tell me I look like the most is Gronk if he lost an amount of weight that would be medically concerning.
They add that stipulation for you. You look like a gaunt.
I add it because I don't want to like claim to be all buff like that or anything.
It's like, yeah, you know who you look like? Gaunt Gronk. That's.
I look like the body that they cloned of Gronk for him to get stem cells out of to stay alive for forever.
What you're like there's that movie with Demi Moore where she splits into another body. I don't know if you've seen that one. I'm gonna have to look up the title.
Oh, The Substance. The one
there
that came
you
out
go.
A little while ago.
I knew you would know that because you're plugged into those circles. That's what I think of is like the Gronk is, but that's the younger version though too. So that's good.
That's very true. I'll take it. I'm young Gronk, even though I think I'm a good 10 years older than Gronk.
Oh, that's a good one. See, this is why I knew this would be a good subject to discuss on the show. I did this with my producer and I at the beginning of the show, and he got all these good ones. He got Tom Hardy. He got Ryan Gosling. I got Patton Oswalt. So
you're a hottie.
So
what the hell?
Yeah, I know.
You got Patton Oswalt?
I got Patton Oswalt. So that's what we're working with here. So I'd rather be a gaunt.
He's
Gronk.
funny. He's funny.
Yeah. But it's kind of like I have a face for radio. I look like Patton Oswalt. I'm not funny like Patton Oswalt. I just look like him. But
well, I think you're doing a great job on the show.
Thanks. I appreciate it. No, I like doing the show because we get a chance to talk with guys like you and have these fun and interesting conversations about all the sports teams. And the Pistons really are the most interesting one to talk about, I think, this year, and don't get talked about enough across the market here because, yeah, you're going to overreact because people are going to say they just weren't getting the respect across the board. And so now the people that weren't really trusting them are kind of taking their victory lap, and you know it's a long series. That's the thing that I think about with this team. I constantly think, man, they're going to be tough to play deep series against because those you hit the nail on the head with the fact that I think everybody in the Orlando starting lineup had 16 or more points. There were only two players on the Pistons that had over 16 points. You know, Harris had 17, Cade had 39, and that's not going to happen again. And I also think that starting five, although, you know, if you want to say, hey, let's just give them a bone and say that they're slightly better than the Pistons, that depth is going to wear them down. And if they're only playing that starting five, I think that rotation from the Pistons, the fact that they can lose Duncan Robinson to foul trouble and just throw Herter in there and keep it rolling, get Ron Holland when they need some energy, they're not going to have a lack of energy, I don't think, in game two because they're going to figure out a way to do it either through kind of the days in between or through the rotation here.
Yeah, and I mean, like, if you look at the regular season in general, the Pistons had, one losing streak of more than 2 games all season? That was it? Just that 4-game skid that they had, I think, in January there, right after Dana signed his contract, if I remember right. And then other than that, it's like two game losses in a row. So this team bounces back. This team answers. And like you said, they're very deep. I guess the question is going to be is how deep is JB going to continue to go into this rotation to see like what's working? But I think if the second unit specifically can start to play like what they were playing like at the very end of the regular season, when there's more ball movement, more people are getting involved. It's not just Danis dribbling around trying to find something. Ron Holland is allowed to shoot 3-pointers when he's out there. Maybe we get more Javonte Green minutes than 4 or whatever he had, because I thought he looked pretty good. He had 2 steals in 4 minutes and got to the free throw line twice. Like, I love Javonte Green all season. I'd love to see him more out there. But they got so many guys who can play. It's a question of who. And I'm also curious if, like, Asar is going to play more than 25 minutes in this next game as well. Because if you need your defense to get you some transition buckets, he's the way. It's him.
Yeah, it was very puzzling how the minutes, I think he only played 9 minutes in the second half. And I understand that you had to answer offensively, but you had to get the defensive stops. So that was his rotation last night was very puzzling, to say the least.
And that's one of the things that I've been kind of focusing on the most here on the show, because it's a good problem to have, I would contend, and JB Bickerstaff is a very good coach, and I trust him to figure it out, but they have a very odd roster construction for the playoffs, where all these names that Harry's talking about, I'm huge on Javonte Green. I think his minutes are always very valuable because he disrupts everything on the other side in a similar way to the way Holland and Stewart and some of the others do, but it just isn't as noticeable, I don't think. But he does do a lot for them, but they have a lot of different players that you can put out there, but you got to press those right buttons, because Orlando's got it pretty simple. They're gonna ride those first 5 guys. They're gonna throw in the guys that have been in the rotation just to give those the starting 5 a little bit of a breather, and then they're gonna ride those as far as they can go. The Pistons, I mean, if you do have a guy that's not necessarily looking good, you can say, okay, well, Duran's not really doing it. Do we try more Stu? Do we throw 5 Paul Reed minutes in here? I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do.
Yeah, I know some people are clamoring for Paul Reed already. I mean, maybe the only way I'd bring in Paul Reed at this point is if, like, it goes really bad on Wednesday, and if maybe they're feeling like Tobias is getting beat a little bit more on defense than they care for, and they start playing Stu a little bit at the 4 just to defensively be out there. But they have options. It's a real who knows sort of situation. It's just we didn't really get to see anybody do anything last game because it was pretty much all Cade scoring at that point. So who's really to say? I'm sure JB will be looking at the tape and being like thinking about it. I'm sure Jalen Duren will have a different game than he had on Sunday night, so that will also affect like the center rotation a little bit. I did think Isaiah Stewart playing backup center defensively was great. He had 2 huge blocks at the very least, but both those guys can afford to score a lot more, and they should be scoring because they're big body bangers, and that's what they've been doing all season.
Exactly. And for the record, I'm not necessarily saying, oh, let's play Duren less, but I do like the idea of, okay, if you are feeling a little sluggish, you have basically a guy at every position that you can kind of insert in there and say, okay, we're feeling a little sluggish. Okay, let's get Danis some more run, or let's see what 5 minutes of Marcus Sasser looks like because the offense is a little stagnant. Or, obviously Holland does that, Stewart does that, Reed does that, Javonte Green, you already mentioned him. So I like that as a button that you can press. You don't want to press it too often because then you're kind of throwing off the balance there. But I think Duren's going to be back in the fold. I'm not too worried about him in general. Yeah, he had an off game, but I do think that you hit on the main point, which is this team is used to very good ball movement, not just from Cade, but in general. They move the ball very well, both the first and second units, and it just wasn't moving quite as well that first game. And there's a lot of different things that went on that it didn't help them, but that to me was the main one. The ball just didn't move super well, and I think it'll move better in game 2.
Oh yeah, the big narrative I think, after the game for a lot of people, and I think it's a fair one, is that a lot of the fears about the Pistons came to fruition. Like, it was going to be all Cade. No one else would show up. The three-point shooting was going to be bad. And I don't so much feel that the Pistons were exposed, really, as just the Pistons that we know didn't show up. Like, it just didn't feel like a Pistons game. And you think you brought this up at the beginning of the show. They looked like a team that hadn't played in a week. And even JB before that game, and I know I'm giving excuses here, and that's fair. But I do want, for the people saying I'm just giving excuses, I also want to remind them I'm giving Orlando credit. Orlando played great, and Orlando's a good team. JB said it's kind of a weird position to be in when you're the number one seed and you don't know who you're going to play against, right? And you're looking at the two teams that they could have played against, and that was going to be Charlotte or Orlando, and that was like the final part of the playout. Are there two more different teams offensively and defensively than those two teams? So when you're thinking about what your game plan is, you can't even like focus on one because you essentially have to cover everything. So then you have that coming in, and I know every other team, every other top seed beat every other lower seed. But again, I think Orlando's a different type of lower seed than the rest of the lower seeds that are in the playoffs.
I do think you bring up a great point that this form. I love the play-in format, especially this year. They had some dynamite games in most of those games in the play-in, aside from really that Orlando Charlotte game. But it isn't the most advantageous to the 1 and 2 seeds because, well, especially the 1 seed, because they're waiting the most. They can't scout their opponent. You've played these teams. I know everybody's kind of saying, well, you've played all these teams and you should know how to play them. Yeah, it is different though, because like you said, Charlotte, they would have had, if they won, I told everybody to have all the ambulances ready in Detroit. Have them all ready.
Absolutely.
Make sure to just have a little channel between there and the hospital. But with this matchup, it is an odd matchup from the standpoint that they didn't necessarily get to scout it, and not a lot of people really know this team very well because this team didn't play together for very long.
Right. Yeah, it's just different, and and this is going to be a counter to what I said here. And so I do want to cover both the bases here. The fact of the matter, though, is Pistons are the number one seed in the East. They should be the better team. They should be winning this game, no matter who the matchup is. They should be the better team in that. But Orlando's a good team. So, like, we're here. We're in a tough series. That's fine. The Pistons were the lower seed in a tough series last year. They only won 2 games in that series last year, and they're still contending with the curse of LCA, where I don't think anyone has won a home playoff game, no matter the sport.
That is a weird statistic. It's just because they literally have the largest losing streak at home.
It's crazy.
It's just a weird statistic. I know I'm usually a numbers guy and saying, okay, yeah, these numbers say this. I think this one is anomalous for the most part, but it's just the way it's kind of stacked together. But I think it'll change shortly. I think it'll change in this.
I think it'll change on Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly. I think it'll change in this series. I'm not too worried, but no, I appreciate all the input, and I like what you guys are doing there. I want to make sure to direct people to the podcast with the great mythical name.
Thank you. Order of the Blazing Horse. It's on YouTube. We're some days of the week. I don't know. We'll probably be Saturday. It's fluid because of the playoff schedule, figuring out the days and getting our guests on. We get like sports people. We get comedians on. It's a good time. We stream live on YouTube, and we're on Apple and Spotify and all that. Before I get off, can I say one thing in defense of JB Bickerstaff? Because I've seen this narrative a little bit.
You can say more than one thing in defense of him because we're very pro him on this.
Okay, great. That's awesome. One, hope he gets Coach of the Year. He got the National Basketball Coaches Association Coach of the Year. That's very cool. I think he's more than deserving of the NBA award. But I saw a lot of people talking about how he was too restrained from throwing or calling challenges on plays in the game on yesterday. Mm-hmm. And I think, if we're being honest, on those plays we're talking about, because there were 3, he would have only won one of them, the one where it went out of bounds on Bain. And on that play, the refs rushed it forward anyway. So he tried to challenge. It didn't get an opportunity to. I think the other 2 opportunities to challenge, they were going to lose those challenges. And I thought that was kind of mature for him not to just call challenge like he has all season, like all the fans have been complaining about him doing all season. So, like, go back and watch those plays. Even if the fouls were late, they were still going to be called fouls. It's hard to win when you're making contact.
It's a great point, and I do think it speaks to kind of what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, where, you know, it's like you want to push one direction and say, well, he's not doing this enough. Well, now he's doing it too much, or he's not doing it enough. And we just want to go from one side to the other. These are very tough in-game calls, and they're split-second calls. We have a lot more information than they do at that time, and he's trying to process a lot more information than we are at his time. And I say that all the time for football, especially because, you know, well, why didn't he challenge it, or why didn't they do this in the moment? Well, because they had 10 different people in their ear and they were trying to figure it out. I know people don't always like the excuses, but I look at it more as an explanation that let's do like the Krav Maga of coaching, and put you in the situation, and then put all this noise around you and train you like they do in Krav Maga, and then let's see if you can fight. Let's see if you can make the decisions that the coach is making.
Oh, I didn't know that's how Krav Maga went down. I don't think I would like to try Krav Maga.
Oh, it's the training system from the Israeli Defense Force, and basically it's big on it's called a martial art, but the difference between that and the other martial arts is there's not like a lot of systems to it. It's basically training you to be fight ready all the time. So what if somebody attacks you when you're seated in a car? And so then they'll play loud music and have you sitting, so you're at a disadvantageous position and trying to fight from below and then gain the advantage. And so it's meant for real life situations. So that's why I compare it to that. But yeah, kind of an obscure reference. I understand.
I gotcha. I don't think I'd like to live my life prepped for a fight at all times.
Yeah, well,
my name isn't Isaiah Stewart.
Yeah, exactly. See, that's why he's my guy. I'm a former intelligence officer. That's why I'm having this this background.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Let him slip the secrets of the service.
Well, that's why we're sports intel. That's my that's my branding. So yeah, it's but no. So that's where my mindset. Yeah, me and Beef Stew, we're always in that mindset. We're always ready for a fight.
We should get you a picture of you two guys together in black suits, dark sunglasses for the intel. Let's try to make that happen.
I like that. That's a great plan. I already have one with Ben Wallace. We don't both have black suits on, but I have a good one with Ben Wallace. So I need to do it with these two. Yeah, these are all good ideas, but we appreciate you coming on the show, and we'll look forward to having you back on. Hopefully that we have a long enough run where we can have you back on before the season's even out.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's get Mickey on here too.
Yeah, I think Mickey is actually scheduled to come on in a couple weeks. So if you guys want to come on together, we can work that out too.
Listeners, you're in for a treat because Mickey rips and he rocks.
Definitely.
Ryan, thank you so much for having me on the show, man. Jeff, thank you for having me on the show, too. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, definitely. Always like having you on, and we'll look forward to having Mickey on and you on again here soon enough. But appreciate you joining us.
Thanks so much, guys.
All right. Thanks, Harry. Thanks to Harry Moroz. I appreciate him coming on. Yeah, that Order of the Blazing Horse is worth listening to. It's kind of our style of podcast. It's very informational. They know what they're talking about. They know the Pistons. They watch all the games, but they infuse some humor into it and fun. And they have fun with it. So it's a good combination. But another podcast that I like is the Eat 'em Up podcast. And so we're going to talk to Jordan Hall of the Eat 'em Up podcast and talk some Tigers here, because I'm sure I haven't talked to Jeff much, but I'm sure he's excited to talk about the Tigers here. So we'll have some questions for Jordan after the break. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. So now we're bringing on the other half of the Eat 'em Up podcast. If you're not listening to it, you should be. But so I have an interesting. This is Jordan Hall. We've had him on the show before. He probably remembers that we do the thing of the day. I'm curious, Jordan Hall, if you have a look-alike. It is National Look-alike Day. Do you get told that you look like somebody else?
I do not. That's a really interesting question. There's plenty of people I would enjoy looking like, but no, I wouldn't necessarily say that I do have a look-alike.
Well, my producer Jeff, when I put his picture in, he got Tom Hardy and Ryan Gosling. When I put my picture in, what's that?
I said, you can do worse than that.
Well, you can, because I put my picture in and I got Patton Oswalt. No offense to Patton. He seems like a very nice man, actually, but that's who I got. So that's my
And
buddy.
really offensive to the two that you mentioned to me. Absolutely. Especially Ryan Gosling. Come on.
I love it. But yeah, I was kind of curious what we were going to get, because we both, everybody makes comparisons, but usually it's like identifiable features. It's like glasses and beards and things like that. So that's all right. You're one of one. So that's a good thing.
I'd like to think so.
But no, we're happy to have you on here. I was having this conversation with Alex last week because I listened to the most recent podcast before he came on, and the timing was just funny because you guys had either recorded it or released it, I think, on Thursday. And they were not in a good stretch of baseball at that point in time. And you were trying to kind of keep them up, it felt like, and you guys were trying not to get down, but it's the beginning of the season. You're working out the kinks. That you had bad weather, all the excuses that people don't like to hear, but they're but they're true. And then they kind of turned it around here. So ever since I listened, I have to imagine the tenor has been better here on the podcast.
It has been. It's been a lot more fun these last week or so. That was a tough moment. I believe we recorded the night that Fromber got absolutely blitzed, and it was a rough night for the boys in the studio. Just kind of one of those nights. But yeah, I think the water's found its level. It started to level a little bit.
And that's, it's funny, and I get why fans do it, but it's a 162 game season. It's always funny that when 10 games in, they're not looking so good, and Minnesota's weirdly atop the division, and all sorts of odd things are happening that we're going, okay, well, it's over. Well, it's not like we have 150 games left. It's over, but it's the nature of being a fan. But I do like this roster construction so far. They've had some early injuries that have dropped some players, but the depth has been evident. I'm curious what you kind of thought at the beginning of the season with the roster construction and what they were at the beginning of the season, and then how that's looked to you as the season has progressed.
Yeah, I think they're really go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead, Jordan.
Okay, I think the big call that Harris made was bringing McGonigal north. Like it became pretty obvious through spring training that there wasn't really another option. But he made the big call. He brought him out, and that really kind of solidified the team. We kind of came into the season knowing that there are a few holes. This is an inherently streaky roster. There are going to be streaks from guys like Riley and Carpenter and Torque and honestly just about everyone throughout the entire lineup. And we're just going to kind of have to ride out the highs and the lows. And obviously early, we found kind of some of the floor in that. Like a lot of those guys were not hitting at the same time. Just kind of rough stuff there. And I don't know. It kind of put into perspective that like clearly the lineup can do the job. The lineup clearly has shortcomings. And it's just going to be a matter of execution. Like we saw today in the game against Boston, the team was plenty good enough to win. Just some stupid errors, some weird stuff that happens, and all of a sudden, we coughed up a very winnable game. That being said, as we've mentioned many times on the pod, the pitching staff is the strength of the team. Like if we go anywhere in the playoffs this year, it's going to be on the backs of the horses, at least in the front of the rotation and the back end of the bullpen. So I don't know. We came into the season assuming that the roster was plenty good enough to win the AL Central. Still believe that. I kind of came into the season thinking that the AL was in play and the World Series is a little bit beyond us. And honestly, 13 games in or 23 games in, I'm not sure that a lot has changed in my mind there either.
No, it seems like everything seems to be working out that way. And you mentioned McGonigal coming up. I think he has really brought a balance, and I think that was one of the reasons they had to bring him up because, like you hit on earlier, this is a very streaky team, and it seems like so far this kid is not streaky. The consistency out of this young kid is absolutely amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I would have assumed coming into the year that he would have been in that same category with all the other streaky players, but he is not a rookie like we are used to seeing. This is a advanced, mature hitter in a way that a lot of our veterans aren't. And it's kind of hard to say enough good things about him. He's just exceeded every possible expectation I could have had.
I agree, and that was, I guess, that was why I didn't probably have the analytics on it or the analytical eye that some of you guys do when he was on his way up. But we do talk to the guys from Tigers Minor League Report, and I know you guys have had them on your show and are buddies with them, with Raj and the crew. And, you know, we've been following these guys for a while. We talked to a lot of the folks from the minor leagues, and so we've been covering them, you know, since they were here in Grand Rapids. And to me, what Jeff said, which was very well put, that's kind of how I looked at it. It's like, man, if you're worried about anything, it's his ability to go to the show because of his age, and he doesn't have that much experience. But with that type of player, you can't be worried about that with what he had shown so far. So if that's not what you're worried about and you think the defense is adequate, then it's time, especially because Brandon Day, who came on the show at the beginning of the season, he said, hey, if he comes up, look out for a contract signing pretty soon afterwards. And he nailed that, as he normally does.
Yeah, that was a big deal. I know it's a lot of money, more than Connor Griffin even got, but I mean, even if he is halfway decent for the next 8 years, that is going to be such a massive steal. Especially considering we don't know what's going to be coming with the new CBA. Like it could be a franchise-changing job to nail him down for the next 8 years.
I'm a big fan of this version of the contracts. I'm sure I'm sure some of them are going to get burned by doing it, but I think you get burned a lot more often by signing a guy that's at the tail end of his career, that you're signing him for the last 8 years. Cough, cough, Miguel Cabrera, that you know, that obviously this contract is very similar. It's wild to watch how the contracts have moved too, because this is a similar contract to Cabrera's, and Cabrera's was, you know, a pretty massive one at the time, and now it's like, no, this is kind of what you pay a very good prospect right at the beginning, and it's maybe setting the market on that to a degree, but the numbers have moved up since that Cabrera contract.
Yeah, definitely. And I always just think to myself, like, what will the biggest names in the game be making in 8 years? Like 18 or 18 and a half, whatever it is with McGonigal, like that could look like absolute chump change that far into the future. So, yeah, it was a good call.
Now, I might be able to sell you on this. Jeff is going to laugh at me because I tried this. I tried this last week, and it's one of my least popular subject matters. I think it's but I already did my other least popular subject matter, which is trying to get 5 goalies on the ice for the Red Wings and trying to do like a knuckle puck situation with Goldberg. So
I think that's the right call.
So I'm proposing my other one, which is I think that McGonigal and Clark need to be in a buddy cop comedy. And I think they need to reunite the guys. I compared it to Lethal Weapon. That's why Jeff was making fun of me, because it's an old reference, but it's all I got right now. But I do think that I'm curious when they're going to reunite them, because jokes aside, I do think they work pretty well together. And the thing that McGonigal brings is very important, as you guys were kind of highlighting, but I think Clark brings a different element. And I'm curious if in kind of the dog days of summer, they're going to be itching to bring him up to kind of get that kind of manic energy. Hey, I'm a big personality, very opposite from McGonigal, but there's a reason they would work well in a buddy cop movie, because they are opposite.
Exactly right.
Personalities.
Yep, definitely.
So I'm curious when we're going to see him, because they are having some injuries here, and Wenzel, you know, they're showing their depth. They're bringing Wenzel up for the first injury, which I think was the right move, and then they're bringing up Montero, you know, for when JV goes on the list. But I mean, eventually, I'm wondering if they're going to be pushed into this or if they're going to wait till July, which was the initial expectation.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head. They've shown the depth with guys like Wenzel, but He has yet to get anything going. And truthfully, like he had a nice playoffs, but down the stretch last year, he wasn't very good either. I tend to think that guys like that come up and aren't just a lightning in a bottle like he was for us mid-season, there's a shelf life on that. I'm not saying that I've given up on Wenzel at all. Like you can never count out switch hitters with some pop, but it's been pretty tough sledding now for quite some time. I don't know. I think Max is not nearly as far away as I thought he was going to be when the season started. I don't know that I necessarily think by, I don't know, I could see June 15th, maybe the start of June if Wenzel stays. I mean, he's hitting 037 right now. I doubt that continues. But unless he starts to produce, I think that we could actually see it. And I do think you're right about his manic energy. And in a lot of ways, I love the composition of the personalities. Now, obviously, we're not in the clubhouse. We don't know these guys. But it definitely strikes me as a bit of a laissez-faire type of clubhouse. And Max is an absolute dog. I think that is going to shake things up a little bit in a way that I'm not convinced isn't going to be good for everybody. There are different ways to add a spark to a clubhouse, and I kind of think that his personality, clearly the guys already kind of like him. I think there's something there. I think you kind of hit that nail right on the head.
I'm big on kind of character and the locker room dynamic because, I mean, as people in the Detroit market, we know how much all the teams value the culture element. We're hearing that word a lot, but it is very amorphous. It's hard to kind of put your finger on how a guy's going to work. But I think McGonigal and Clark do work very well at the major league level for very different reasons. McGonigal is able to go in from day one, be one of their most consistent hitters, be that guy that's going to be able to ride through the ups and downs of the baseball season. And not that he won't have any downs, but I think he'll be able to get out of them quickly and not be subject to some of the ups and downs that some of the older guys have been that are still young, but they've been dealing with over the course of the season. Max, I could see being a little more volatile, but in a good way where he's going, but hey, his bat might be a little less consistent or what have you, but his energy will not be inconsistent. And I think that would be I think that's going to be a chip that they're not going to be afraid to play when maybe they need a little bit of juice at the major league level, because although we're far from the trade deadline, I think that's the other thing they're looking at is what does the current roster construction look like? We think we've got the pitching nailed down, as you mentioned, Jordan, and now we're getting ready to see what bat we need, with assuming that Max is probably going to be in the fold at some point too, with McGonigal and with the rest of the guys that we have. Where's our weak spot? Let's shore that up, and let's try to solidify our run into the postseason here.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even when you put personality on the back door, Max is probably the best center fielder we have in the organization at this very moment. Obviously, we don't know how it's going to translate, but I would be hard-pressed to believe that if we run him out for the next 100 games, he doesn't give us better production than some kind of Frankenstein's monster version of Vierling, Baez, Wenzel, Parker when he comes back. He is just he's a different kind of athlete. And I know it's been talked about a lot, but I think the spring training that he had, getting all the attention for the chains and all that kind of stuff, I think that was so good for him. He was able to kind of, I don't want to say taste failure, because it was still fairly decent. Like, nobody expected him to break camp with the team, but he went through there. He took his lumps. He got the tattoo of the date he was sent down, and he has done literally nothing but grind since. I don't know. There's some kind of special combo with him of mentality, personality, and actually ability that I'm pretty convinced he's going to be a stud, and hopefully before awfully too long.
Exactly. I don't want to necessarily overshadow who's on the roster now by talking about who's coming, but I am interested in the dynamic that he provides. I had one more follow-up question. You're talking about the pitching. Are you surprised by this is going to be kind of a random one, but you were talking about how the pitching is the depth and is what they're going to ride. I'm a little surprised by the usage of the middle relievers so far. Are you in that same? Jeff
Good
is
point.
nodding his head
Yes, good
at me. Are you guys in that same boat with me?
I am. It seems like he is either going to play the long game with guys like DeJesus or Drew Anderson, or he plays the A bullpen. It seems like there's kind of not a lot in between. I don't know if that's what you're getting at, but yeah, there's been some interesting bullpen usage, I would definitely say. That being said, AJ and Feder have done so well for so long now. I kind of I'm willing to accept my own limitations as far as like being able to get in their heads. I don't know what's going on, but I trust them. I guess that would be kind of where I come down. They do have a lot of new faces out there, and it might just be a matter of kind of trying to strike that balance. But I gotta believe they'll find it.
Oh, I think it's a lot of seeing what they have for sure, and this is when you want to see that. For sure, and they do have some depth. Hopefully, they've got a lot of young guys. Unfortunately, a lot of the young guys are the ones that are hurt currently. But they've got a lot of depth in the system. It's just been kind of curious to me. But I do think they're going to try to see people in the roles that they envision them in, and do they work in these roles? And then if that doesn't work, then okay, do we have a role for them? And then, or do we have to kind of unseat them and get somebody else in? So I think it's a good strategy. And like you said, you can't doubt those two as far as how they use the pitchers. It's magical how they typically do it. But that was an interesting thing. I'm seeing more of certain guys like DeJesus and some other guys than I maybe anticipated. But I think they're trying to see what they have.
Yeah, and definitely, it's also a little bit of interesting roster construction. You don't normally have. I mean, basically, they have four long guys with Herter, Siebold, DeJesus, and Drew Anderson out in the bullpen. Like, that's very atypical. It is just kind of an odd. And I think from AJ's perspective, like, if you can use these guys for multiple innings, there's that, like, temptation to do so. Yeah, I think it's just kind of odd that he's just feeling his way through.
And one of my main criticisms last year, I don't know if it was a criticism, but observations, was the fact that, when Holton was kind of scuffling a little bit and Herter and some of the guys that we had seen perform very well, I said, hey, they've been utilized too much for what their role should be. And now I think we're seeing it. So I think this is also a kickback effect of hey, we're going to make sure to kind of keep the arms fresher for what hopefully is a long run this season.
Yeah, definitely. And I like my manager thinking that way. Obviously, you have to win. Well, I was going to say have to win the division. You got to get in the playoffs. But once you're in the dance, it all that matters is having the best 26 guys when you're there. And, yeah, I don't necessarily begrudge him trying to save a few bullets in some of these arms, especially guys like Holton that he has used to death over these last couple of years.
I could not believe he brought out Holton today. Not after Saturday. I really couldn't.
And I mean, it clearly didn't. It went the way you would have assumed based on usage. So
yeah, I have a lot of respect for Holton and the pitcher that he is, but he can only do as much as he can do. He's a human being, and so yeah, they'll get that figured out. But Jordan, we really appreciate you joining us, and I want to make sure to direct people to the podcast. We'll definitely have you on again, but so they can listen to it in between here.
Yeah, thanks. It's a lot of fun.
So give them the socials on the Eat 'Em Up podcast here.
Yeah, so we're at Eat 'Em Up Pod on Facebook and Instagram. You can find Alex at aurban91, and I'm on Twitter and Instagram at hosted by J Hall.
And definitely tune in. It's great stuff. And we'll look forward to having you both on as the season progresses here.
All right, thanks.
All right, thanks, Jordan. Talk to you later. Thanks to Jordan Hall. Appreciate him joining us here. And Jeff and I have a couple breaks left, and we got some time in studio to see what we'll chat about. I can guarantee it's probably not going to be Lethal Weapon, so we'll find something else. We'll figure something else out. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Thank them for all of their support. I want to thank the guests that we had on. Elaine Shircliff, she was great. Check out the Grace by Rain podcast. We'll have her on next week. Harry Moroz of the Order of the Blazing Horse podcast. Hopefully we'll have some more Pistons to talk about with him and the rest of the crew. And then Jordan Hall of the Eat 'Em Up pod. We talked to him and Alex Urban. Both of them do a good job, and we'll be covering a lot of baseball. But Jeff and I are back here in studio. I'm curious. I mean, we got on, so obviously we'll be on the air on Thursday for Shane Graham's Extra Points when the draft happens. So I'm curious what you think the Lions are going to do here, because we got to sneak in a little Lions talk since we got the draft on Thursday.
I think offensive tackle. I think that's where they'll go. Now, I don't see them moving up. I wouldn't be surprised if they slide down a few spots. But it'll be, I'm excited. It'll be interesting. All the guessing. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
It's I'm like, I cannot wait just for it to be over at this point, because they literally start 3 months in advance now.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I had a friend of mine tell me, he's a huge Lions fan, and right after the season ended, he said, "I'm so glad the season's over. Now we can start talking about the draft."
Yeah.
It was
I have
like,
a buddy the
wait,
same
what?
way.
But no, I mean, people do like the theorizing, but I'm kind of with you. I've gone a different direction because I'm doing this 7-round mock with the guys at Michigan Football Network. We're almost done. We're going to do the recap for the other 4 rounds. We've done rounds 1 through 3. So we're going to be doing that tomorrow and Wednesday. So check out the Michigan Football Network if you want to see the rest of that or the first part. But we're through 3 rounds and we're still drafting. I've actually submitted a couple of my picks while I've been on the show because we're almost done with the 7th round here. But it is an interesting season. But yeah, I am kind of at the point. We've had a lot of good experts on the show. But yeah, it is guessing season. It is misinformation season. That's one of the things that I'm really, if I've arrived at a particular conclusion with the Lions pick, I have arrived at this particular conclusion, which is one of the guys that they heavily favor is Blake Miller, and that is a very likely pick depending on how the board breaks for them. And that Caden Proctor, who pretty much everybody on the national beat is saying they will pick and saying he won't make it past 17, but hardly anybody on the local beat is behind. That is a huge difference because we do talk to a lot of the people on the local beat, and that makes me think that might be a bit of misinformation where people are putting that information out there so that they can kind of swerve into an entirely different player in Blake Miller.
I haven't heard anybody locally talk Proctor. They do not like Proctor.
No, there's a lot of things that do not match with the Lions with Proctor. He's got great size. I'll start with his positives because it's going to sound like I don't like him. I don't see the fit with the Lions entirely because he's got great size. He's got great traits, but the Lions have leaned away from the whole traits thing. He's got a great build and great athletic traits. But he also doesn't seem the most movable. And the Lions
that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, the Lions tend to move their offensive linemen around. So he's not the most movable piece. That's not great. He hasn't had a ton of experience. He has transferred away from Iowa, a program that they like a lot. So if he didn't fit well with Iowa, is he going to fit well with Detroit? Then you've got, on the other hand, Blake Miller, who, as I've said several times on the show, only missed 1 practice because of a broken hand, and it conflicted with his actual surgery. Not, I have a broken hand today. He probably would have played with the broken hand. The surgery conflicted with the practice. But he's played a lot of games, but he's still a pretty young age, but he's started 52 or 54 games for Clemson. Just seems like their type of player, but it's just been interesting to watch that on the local beat, you see a lot of Blake Miller mentioned, maybe some Monroe Freeling, and then on the national beat, you see a lot of Caden Proctor.
Which is crazy because it comes down to one simple question. Can he start? And Proctor could not start in the league. He couldn't.
The people that are high on him are saying, hey, I think he can develop into a good left tackle, and he might be able to start at guard at day 1. That's really not a great sentence for the Lions. I know they could use some help at guard, but that's not what they're going to be drafting to have a starter. That's not what they're going to be using their first round pick for. If they do, I think it's much more likely to be Vega Ione, the guard from Penn State. If they're going a guy that they think is going to factor into guard, then they're going to hit a home run with that position and say, hey, we're gonna move Mahogany to the bench and we're going to put Ione in here and we're going to work out tackle later. I don't think that's the most likely scenario. I don't think he makes it to 17, and I don't think the Lions take him over some of the tackle options. But it's just an interesting. That's the one thing that I kind of wanted to talk about, because it is interesting to see that. I don't know that I've seen that amount of a discrepancy between the national and the local beat, but we're covering the local beat so heavy now and still talking to some of the national guys. So it's just a big difference. But yeah, I'm glad we got to talk about that. Need to take another quick break, and then we'll come back and finish the show up. So stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. We did well with the lookalike day. Mr. Tom Hardy / Ryan Gosling, my producer,
right.
Jeff Isaak here.
Go to the Facebook page and you decide.
You you should go to the Facebook page, because you got to check out the All Request show. That's part of the lineup. We got to preview the lineup. I sometimes skip Conrad and Rowdy, but we got plenty of time, so we got to make sure to highlight them. They're the two stalwarts during the day. Conrad's in the morning shift of the Country Bunker, and then we got Rowdy Yates 2 to 7. And then the next sports show will be the Sports Project from 7 to 9 on Wednesday, prime time, with the sports professor, Steve Project. Then we'll be live during the draft. And Mom's looking at me right now. She doesn't even know that this is a big return. On Thursday, we have Dr. Jimmy Liao coming back. He is going to be on Thursday. He's gotten back in touch with me. He's gotten out of his analysis hole and emerged just in time for the draft. So he'll be able to give us some medical analysis. We'll be happy to be reunited with him. I don't think Jeff's talked to him because he's been gone for the amount of time, but he's a doctor that's from Michigan initially, and we've become friends with him, but he's got very good medical analysis on the Lions. He's kind of the foremost guy with medical analysis, but he's got like a sneaky good sense of humor too. So the thing of the day kind of started with him, because we started talking about food all the time during his segments. So, but excited to have him on, and then Shane will be in. We'll have an open segment at the beginning, kind of preview, and then Dr. Liao will actually be on the draft part with us. He'll be doing the draft part with us starting at 8 with me and Dan. So be sure to tune into that. And then we also have the Sports Project 10 to 12 on Saturday, and then Polka Pops and Polka Overtime, hopefully with some MLB mixed into that mix, along with the other Polka Pops guys. And then get in all your requests, because it's the All Request show. So if you want to hear Enya, call Jeff up and request Enya.
That's kind of a stretch.
Enya's a stretch. On a classic country format. I don't know. That's what I think that's what I would request. If I
pulled up ZZ Top Saturday night.
That's good.
Yeah.
What song was it?
Sharp Dressed Man.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, I just heard of actual LaGrange, Texas.
Okay,
that the song is based on, but that's another ZZ Top favorite. But yeah, I like the random requests. Those always make me happy, because those are of my own volition here. That's of my own mindset. It's the same guy that brings up Lethal Weapon and Mighty Ducks on my show. Very relevant references for the kids out there. But no, we appreciate you joining us, and thanks to Jeff for keeping us on track, and for all the folks, including Mom, joining us here. And we'll look forward to talking with you next week. Until then, stay informed and stay vigilant.
Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh is brought to you by
Collectible Insurance Services, Eric Hall Aesthetic and General Dentistry, Calder Financial, Grand Management Group, Rydan Investments, Encore Business Group, Jim Hegland of JH Realty, Williams Chiropractic, I-Core, the West Michigan Sports Commission.
Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh.
Stay informed and stay vigilant.